Hi guys, coming to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with a tier list for patch 2.3a. So as you guys know, I don't normally do a tier list for back-to-back patches. Normally there's a patch or two in between before I create another tier list, but I feel that there are significant enough changes to warrant making a tier list for this patch. So that's exactly what we're going to do today, but it's going to be hopefully a quick one, and I'm only going to be covering the changes and significant pointers. So first up, of course, we're going to start off with the Baron lane. So first up, Garen, Fiora, and Gragas are still up there. However, Camille is joining them in the S plus tier because many people are seeing Camille jungle as the ideal role for Camille at the moment, but I have been dabbling in a little bit of both Camille jungle and Camille Baron lane. However, I do feel that in Baron lane, she's still just as good as she was. Like, just because she became good in the jungle didn't diminish how good she was in the Baron lane. So she is actually still up there, just that Garen, Fiora, and Gragas are outperforming her a little bit at the moment. But if you're a good Camille, you will always be able to make it work. So definitely Camille is S plus. As we still have Malphite and Renekton. However, Riven has dropped out of the S tier into the A tier. As I said in the previous tier list, Riven and Irelia's position in the tier list is still not confirmed. And honestly, one patch later, nothing too much has changed in the sense that since no one has actually mastered them, we can't actually see where they are. But this is, in theory. So in theory, I thought Riven would be pretty good if mastered, but since no one really has mastered it, no one really makes the pick look good. So she's just A tier. And for Irelia, I haven't actually seen any good Irelias either. But even if there were, I wouldn't think that the Baron lane would be the ideal position for Irelia. Now, the reason for that is that the top Baron laners are all pretty tanky, like Garen, Gragas, even Fiora and Camille are tanky to a certain extent. Renekton, Malphite, they're all way too tanky for Irelia to kill too easily. You have to like fully stack your passive and get off a ton of auto attacks to actually kill people, so that it makes it really challenging for Irelia to snowball in the Baron lane. So that's definitely not the ideal position for her. Now, looking at the rest of the tier list, there hasn't actually been any changes since the last patch, so I won't be covering that, and instead we'll quickly move on to the jungle. Okay, so onto the jungle. The top of the tier list has basically remained the same. So Lee Sin and Camille are still the two best junglers, and I have actually played some Camille jungle, and it works really, really well. The previous tier list, I put it there just from looking at it, but this time I've actually tried it, and I can verify that Camille jungle is pretty good. The only small drawback of Camille jungle is something I like to do when I was playing Camille Baron lane is if we are doing a like dragon or a baron, I like to jump over the wall and use my Hextech ultimatum onto the enemy jungler so that they cannot flash into the pit or dash into the pit for a steal. But if you're playing Camille jungle, you can't actually do that because you are the jungler with the smite as well. So you have to be in the pit to smite the epic monster. So that is a slight drawback of Camille jungle, but compared to the rest of the junglers, she's still really good. Now, Evelynn hasn't changed position, although she has gotten nerfed, and I feel I have to cover this. So the nerf to Evelynn was the one that we all wanted, which is the fact that she couldn't actually execute dragons and barons anymore. And Rift Terror for that matter, she couldn't actually use her execute damage onto monsters anymore. But if you really think about it, this doesn't actually affect her damage to champions. It doesn't affect her ability to snowball. So she's still good in that regard. The only thing it affects, of course, is the steal. So now, something Evelynn obviously could do and would do in the past is her ultimate would be constant pressure for the enemy team. So even for a team who's ahead, they have to sort of respect the fact that there's an enemy Evelynn who has ultimate, and that Evelynn can easily get into the pit and steal objectives. So it sort of just is a deterrent for teams who are ahead to do objectives, and if the game is neutral, it dissuades the enemy team from doing objectives. But if you really have to go for a steal, it either means your team has made a mistake or your team is really far behind anyway, so which is of course not the ideal position you want to be. So if you're playing Evelynn right, you would be snowballing yourself and your team. So if you really think about it, it seems like a very big change, which it is, to be fair, but affecting the power levels of Evelynn herself, not really. Evelynn is still really good. Her damage wasn't hit, her cooldowns wasn't hit. Nothing was hit except her ability to take neutral objectives, which of course is no small thing, but Evelynn, in my opinion, is still good. Now, Kha'Zix and Rengar. Rengar on release was way better than Kha'Zix with broken numbers, but now after Rengar has gotten his AD nerfs and Kha'Zix has gotten his isolation range decreased, so it's easier to get isolated targets. Now there is an actual debate of whether Kha'Zix or Rengar is better, and I love that because I feel like that should be the way all along, because they're supposed to have been equal based on storyline, so that it makes a lot more sense for the Nemesis duel and all. Previously, Rengar obviously is better than Kha'Zix, but now some people are saying Kha'Zix is better. Some people are saying Rengar is better, but whoever is better, I rank them like equal. So last time I put Rengar in front of Kha'Zix. Now I'm switching their positions just to show that they're both like relatively equal in power level. Not that Kha'Zix is better than Rengar now, but both of them are really good S tier junglers. Just that they both have different like specialities. Like Kha'Zix is really good at isolated targets and chaos of the team fight, but Rengar, honestly, even if a target is not isolated, he can just go in one shot, like the carry or whatnot. So they both have a different play style, but more or less they're still really good as assassins. Now, in the A tier, I have actually added Fizz into the tier list. So Fizz is something that I did say in the previous series. I did mention when I was talking about the mid lane in the previous tier list that I do believe that he is probably going to be A or B tier after having played against him. I have never played Fizz Jungle, but I have tested his clear. The thing I did point out is that in the last tier list is that his clear is not very healthy and is not very fast, and as expected, people in high elo who have been playing Fizz have been getting countered by people just invading their jungle. So the easy way to counter Fizz is simply just invade him. So if you invade Fizz, there's a very high chance, on his first clear of course, there is a very high chance you get a kill on the Fizz, or you minimally steal his jungle camps, because it's going to be very hard for him to contest his jungle camps with you, considering he's at low health, and he has very long cooldowns at early levels. So the reason why I think Fizz is not like S or S plus tier is just simply due to the fact that he has a very weak early clear, which is the same problem as Amumu, same problem as Master Yi. As we all know, Master Yi is the worst jungler because he has such a weak early game that it just doesn't matter anymore. Fizz is way better than Master Yi in the sense that it's only his first clear that's really the problem. After that, it's not really too much of a problem because he's more of a ganking jungler than a farming jungler anyway. But his first clear is a very blatant point of weakness that can easily be taken advantage of if your opponent knows what they're doing. So Fizz, I don't think is going to be any higher than the A tier. And he's also below Wukong, Vi, and Jarvan in my opinion. But I have moved Gragas up from the B tier. So Gragas, as we all know, Gragas tank is very meta in the Baron lane. But what we don't realize is that Gragas tank also works in the jungle, and I have tested it out. So instead of taking Grasp of the Undying, because you can't stack that in the jungle, you take Aftershock, which you can proc easily with your ultimate or your E, both of which you definitely hit the enemies. So having a tank Gragas jungle is actually really good as well, because especially if your other lanes don't have a tank, like let's say it's an Enchanter support, it's a mage mid lane, and it's a Irelia or Riven in the top lane, so you wouldn't have a tank on the team, so you can actually pick tank Gragas, and tank Gragas actually does decently well. I still think Baron lane Gragas is way better, of course, because you can stack your Grasp and you get a lot more gold a lot more quickly, and levels as well, but Gragas jungle is still good, which is why he's still in the A tier. So other than that, there has been a lot of reshuffling in the B tier. Firstly, Pantheon dropped from A to B tier. He wasn't as good as expected with his penetration buff to his ultimate, and instead of that, Olaf and Amumu is actually going to overtake Shyvana and Pantheon on the tier list, although they're all still in the B tier. The recent jungle changes with the mana per second when you're in the jungle has really helped Olaf and Amumu, who are both very mana hungry junglers, and you can actually start red buff on them at the moment without having. You will still have mana issues, but it will be not as bad as previously, so it is actually viable to start not start at blue buff. And of course, the smite changes have also really helped Evelynn, which is also a contributing factor to, actually a major contributing factor that I forgot to sort of cover when I was talking about Evelynn, about why she is still in the S tier. But with below the B tier, the rest of the jungle tier list has not changed at all. So after covering that, we're gonna move on onto the mid lane. Okay, so now quickly into the mid lane. Now, honestly, as you guys can see at the S plus, S, and A tier, The mid lane now is pretty balanced, honestly. Most people are pretty equal. I still think Diana is the best mid laner, but only by a small margin above Katarina and the rest of them. So, as you can see, there is a very overloaded S tier. Now, that's because all of these mid laners are honestly really good at the moment. Katarina did drop out of the S plus tier because the nerf 10% nerf to her damage in the early and the late game to her AP ratio actually has made a difference, and it actually has actually affected her damage and her snowball potential. But of course, she is still really good if you can play Katarina well. So she's still in the S tier, just not in the S plus tier. I've actually put Irelia and Akali up in the high S tier. Now the reason for this is I feel that it's very easy for Irelia to snowball in the mid lane because her matchups are generally going to be Diana, Katarina, Orianna, Ziggs, Corki, and Akali, all of which are relatively squishy and easy to kill. So if you can play Irelia well, stack up your passive, go all in, get a kill, you can snowball the game and sort of go 1v9 carry mode on Irelia. So that's why she is in the high S tier. Now, Akali I honestly underrated in my previous tier list. She is actually still really good in the mid lane, but just that you have to manage her energy very well. But overall, she did get a damage increase on her E's second phase, so overall her all-in combo does actually do more damage, which is why in the mid lane, where majority of mid laners are squishy, Akali can actually thrive and do very well in the mid lane. So Akali and Irelia are going to be top mid lane picks in my opinion. Of course, Orianna, Ziggs, and Corki always good picks. The nerfs to Ziggs didn't really affect him too much. Galio is, A tier, but, against the correct matchup like Diana or Katarina, he is still really good, but just that he's not S tier. I can't see him in the S tier. Twisted Fate moves up from the B to the A tier. Now, the buffs to Twisted Fate's attack speed has actually helped him a lot easier for him to stack up Conquer, a lot easier for him to proc Electrocute with that faster attack speed. And as I said all the way back many tier lists ago, if you're good as Twisted Fate, if you can roam very well, if you know how to play Twisted Fate, he can be an amazing character, and I feel like, B tier was just a little bit too low of a rating for him. He should be in the A tier. But that's it for the mid lane changes, and without further ado, we're quickly going to jump into AD carry. Alright, now honestly in this patch, AD carry hasn't actually been really touched at all, but there has been one change, which is Varus going from A to S tier. Now Varus, who would ever think that Varus would be like the 4th best AD carry? Of course, Kai'Sa Ezreal still the top 2, Xayah coming in 3rd, and Varus now probably better than Corki and Jinx, at least according to my tier list, but he's probably better than Corki and Jinx, honestly. So Varus lethality build is really, really good. Now Varus with his normal attack speed build like Blade of the Rune King into Runaan's Hurricane, that build sucks. It has never been good. AP Varus actually came into the picture like a couple patches ago. Majority of people thought that was a great improvement for Varus, but people have found Lethality Varus, which is Manamune into Youmuu's into your Ionian Boots with enchantment, then the Dust Blade and GA. So now this build is amazing because Varus poke does insane damage. In the mid to late game, you can do 1/3 or half the health of the enemy AD carry from fully charging your arrow from afar, and that's without even activating your second skill or without any bite stacks. So the way you play Lethality Varus is you simply play a poke composition. So he's really good into a poke composition, but he sucks in an all-in kind of composition because his main strength is shooting arrows at the enemy and poking them out before the fight. So you basically win the fight before the fight begins. But if everybody wants to fight, you haven't really had time to poke, so you're only going to be able to get off 1 or 2 arrows into the enemy's face. If it hits multiple enemies, you might be able to win the fight, but Varus' main strength is poking. So in certain compositions, I would say Varus is S plus tier. In some compositions, Varus could be B or C tier, because if he can't do his poking, if he can't do his job, it isn't going to be very good for him. Let's just put it at that. The rest of the tiers remains the same. Corki and Jinx, of course, still really good late game scaling carries, and the rest of the tier list is the same. No changes there. So let's quickly cover the supports. Alright, so supports have probably the most significant changes in my opinion. So first up, Braum moves up into the S tier ahead of Janna. Now, the thing about this is that Braum only moves up because of the Janna nerfs. So Janna herself has gotten weaker because her W damage has been hit pretty hard in my opinion. you can feel the difference on the Janna W nerf, honestly. So Janna is no longer the best support. Who is instead the best support is Braum. Now Braum, he is really good. He can just get off his passive on people. People get stunned. People get knocked out from his ultimate for engage or disengage, and he can block projectiles with his shield. He really does a lot, for the team. Just that Janna has always been doing more. Now the fact that Janna got nerfed actually means that Braum is probably the best support at the moment. So Braum and Janna are up there in the S+. Now I've actually moved Nami, Lux, and Leona up into S. Now, as you guys know, I always do it for Nami, and Nami honestly is a really good spot right now, especially having both Font of Life and Aerie as viable keystones, and Nami is just really strong. She's never really gotten nerfed, at least so far. And no one, I feel she's really underrated. No one is really playing Nami too much, which is what the reason why I think she hasn't really gotten nerfed. But she really is very good and very underrated. Lux, of course, got her shield nerf a while back, but she is still really good. Not as great as before, but she is still really good. Support, of course, building support, not building damage, building all support items. Leona got her range buff. I have tested Leona again, and I honestly feel that Leona's range buff puts her up to the next level. As I said, she was never really tanky enough, but I feel that actually the range buff has actually made up for that. The constant range buff, this is the second range buff she got on her E. So the problem with last time is that her range was so short that by the time she got into engage range, she has been chunked out and poked out. So by the time you go in, you're actually like at half health or below and you easily die. But now the fact that she has a long engage range means that she doesn't actually take as much damage before she engages. Which means that when you go in, you're going to be healthier. So you don't actually have the need to be as tanky. So I actually think in this regard, range buff has actually helped her in terms of her tankiness. Just due to the fact that she is not going to get poked out when she's trying to engage. So Leona, honestly, I feel is going to be a really good support at the moment. Alistar, unfortunately, used to be like the third best support, but he has seen a lot less play. His engage is really predictable, and he's honestly not as good as he once was after all the rounds of nerfs. So in the A tier, Seraphine and Galio are still up there, but Rakan and Lulu have actually been added to the picture. So I gotta talk about Lulu first because it's really a really simple explanation. Basically, if you pair Lulu with Jinx, she's really good. If you pair Lulu with any other AD hyper carry like maybe Kai'Sa, it's gonna be really good, especially on Jinx. So Lulu, of course, has really good supportive capabilities. She just got buffed in the 2 patches ago, I believe, and she's still pretty good. Now Rakan has also got some slight buffs, but that's not the reason why he is going up. It's because people have actually found this weird AP Rakan build, which is pretty interesting in my opinion. You basically go Rod of Ages into Rabadon's Death Cap and then build your normal support items. But the reason why this is so good is firstly, when he goes in with his ultimate and his W, he actually does significant damage. But the main reason why it really works is because his heal on his Q actually scales with AP. So if you build AP, which is what people are doing at the moment, when you actually hit your Q and heal your ally, you actually heal them for way more than if you didn't build AP at all. And the amount that you heal, the difference is very significant. And that's the main reason why AP Rakan is good. It's not for the damage, because Rakan's only real damage is his W and his R, which is not a lot of damage output. He can't just stand there and auto attack. It doesn't actually do anything. So the main reason for it is the giant heal that you get from it, and I think that really has put AP Rakan up a tier. But below that, on the B tier and below, everything has remained the same. There have actually been no changes to the support tier list. But if you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. And the next episode of the Meta Recap, which is episode 2, will be releasing shortly after this video, maybe like 2 to 3 days after this video comes up. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching the video, and bye.